Hey guys, it's Austin with OutJeeping. In today's video, I'm going to be showing you guys how to replace a transmission filter and transmission fluid flush in your Jeep Cherokee XJ. Alright, so the first thing we need to do is drain the fluid that's in the transmission right now. Now, not all the fluid's going to come out because some of it's stuck in the torque converter. So first thing we got to do is just take out the drain plug, and then we're going to drop the pan, replace the filter, and put the pan back up, fill it up. Then we're going to take one of the transmission lines and disconnect it and put it into a bucket or something, and then run the engine a little bit so it helps flush out that old fluid. Alright, so looking under the Jeep right here, as we can see, we got a drain plug right there on the pan. And then we got bolts going all the way around, and I believe they are 10 millimeter. Mine are a little bit muddy up there. I'm going to have to clean them off. So I'm just going to loosen this up right here and have it drain out. Alright, so this drain plug is going to be a 14 millimeter. So as you can see, my fluid is a little bit dark. It doesn't really smell burnt. It just kind of smells like stale sweetness, so it's not too bad. If you do have really dark or almost like black transmission fluid, you probably want to keep it in there because it still has clutch fibers that help with the torque converter, and if you put new stuff in there, it might result in transmission slip. Alright, so the next thing I'm going to work on is removing all the 10 millimeter bolts that go all the way around. Now, depending on what year Cherokee you have, you either have 19 or 17 bolts. Now, these back ones are going to be a little bit tricky to get at because you got the cross member right in the way. And the front ones are a little bit difficult for me too because I got this exhaust in the way. Alright, so all the bolts are out from around the pan perimeter, and it's just held in there right now from the gasket. So you can gently start to pry it around the corners and see where it could come off. Alright, so it's loose from the transmission, but now it's the dipstick that holds it in, and the dipstick has two parts to it, so you want to make sure it breaks apart. Alright, so I finally got the pan out. It took a little while because the dipstick tube would not separate where it's supposed to at the O-ring. I guess it's a common problem for it to rust up there and not separate. So what I'm going to do to fix that is I took a cutter, just a normal pipe cutter, cut it around here. Then I'm going to take a little piece of rubber hose and just hose clamp it on the bottom and then the top on the rest of the dipstick that's in the Jeep right now. But as you can see, it looks like someone else was in here before and used some RTV to seal this all up. So I got to scrape this off of the pan here and the transmission side. Then I'm going to take some brake clean this all out. And then we got two magnets on the bottom here. As you can see, they're all full of metal shavings. It's kind of like a mud. That's how fine they are. Two magnets on the bottom, just clean them off and put them back where they were. Alright, so now we can actually remove the transmission filter, which is this big metal plate right here. And it's going to be held in by four 10 millimeter bolts. And make sure you have a pan underneath because there's going to be some more fluid coming out of the filter. Alright, so that's what it looks like. Alright, so now we can take our new filter and bolt it back in. We don't need to worry about any sealant because they have some cork gaskets on the back side. Alright, now all we have to do is just clean up the gasket surface and put the pan back in. Alright, so we're just about ready to put the transmission pan back on the Jeep. And to fix this issue with the dipstick, I just got a piece of rubber tubing and I have it clamped down here. Then I'll just add another clamp on the top section of the dipstick. And you want to make sure that the two metal pieces that are inside, they touch so you get the right dipstick length. So with this new gasket that was provided in the kit, we're basically just going to lay this on here, and then we can take a couple of our bolts and then stick them through. And they make these holes a little bit smaller so that it helps hold the gasket in place while you're trying to put the pan up. Alright, so with the bolts held in place with the gasket, we can go and reinstall our pan. Alright, so now we can take our pan and try to sneak it in here. We want to make sure we line up the dipstick tube. Start with the bolts. Alright, so once you have all the bolts started, you can go and torque them down to about like 5 foot-pounds. Alright, so with everything buttoned up underneath, we can go and add some transmission fluid. So by just dropping the pan, we probably drained about 4.5 quarts. So I'm going to put a whole gallon in right now, and then we're going to run the Jeep a little bit so that we can flush out the old stuff that's in the torque converter, and then we can fill it up again. So for the Jeep Cherokee XJ, it has a AW4 transmission, and those do not take ATF. They actually take Dex Merc blend. So under the front of the Jeep here, we have two connections in the transmission lines, and as you remember from my last video, I added a transmission cooler, so that's where I added these. And what I'm basically going to do is take the return line off the transmission cooler and disconnect it from the return of the transmission. And then I'm just going to put an extension hose onto that into a funnel so that way it drains and flushes out the dirty fluid. Alright, so now I got a container down here with a funnel, and I'm basically just going to turn this on and have it fill up about 3/4 of the way, since I don't have too much transmission fluid to be flushing through. I only got 2 gallons. If you obviously have more, you can keep doing it until the color begins to turn nice and red. Alright, Matt, start it up. Stop it! Stop! So everything's buttoned up underneath the Jeep, and now we can fill the transmission for the last time. I'm going to go fill it up on the dipstick, and then I'm going to go and drive the Jeep for a little bit so that warms up the transmission, and then have it running. Then I will top it off to where the level needs to be. Alright guys, that's it for today's video. As you saw, I went and drove this around for a little bit, so that way the transmission got up to operating temperature, and then I topped off the fluid to the max level. Now, doing that little transmission dipstick repair, you want to make sure that the two metal pieces come all the way together, so that way you won't have any change on the dipstick level reading. So I want to thank you guys for watching. Hope you learned something. Please like and subscribe to the OutJeeping YouTube channel, and we'll see you in the next video.